Good morning, class. This is your second lecture on the topic Constitution Why and How. I hope you must have done the assignments of the first video. Before going further, let us recapitulate what we have dealt in the last video. In the last video, we have seen different functions of the Constitution, that why a society needs a constitution, why people are following the rules of the constitution. So the first function of the constitution, that it provides basic rules to have minimum coordination and assurance among the citizens. Then next, it specifies the function or the power of decision making, that who has the power to take decisions. Third, it limits the power of the government on making decisions so that it cannot become arbitrary in nature. Next, through constitution we can fulfill goals and aspirations of a society, like we have seen example of abolition of titles, abolition of untouchability. So these were the goals and these were the goals and aspiration of the society after the independence. So every time constitution reinterpret to fulfill the aspirations of the society. Then we have seen that constitution provides us fundamental identity. Why fundamental identity? Because we follow the fundamental laws that is written in the constitution, and through it we have political identity and moral identity as well. Till now we have outlined some of the functions a constitution performs. These functions explain why most societies have a constitution, but there are other functions or other further questions we can ask about the constitution. And after today's class, I have an expectation from you all that you will be able to define what is a constitution, how effective is a constitution, is a constitution just, know from where constitution derived its authority, define referendum, and explain the mode of promulgation of constitution. In most countries, constitution is a compact document that comprises a number of articles about the state, specifying how the state is to be constituted and what norms it should follow. But when we ask for the constitution of a country, we are usually referring to this document. But some countries like United Kingdom do not have single document, but they have a series of documents and decisions that, taken collectively, are referred to as the constitution. So we can say that constitution is the document or set of document that seeks to perform the functions that we mentioned above. But here you can ask question that many constitutions around the world exist only on paper. They are mere words existing on a parchment. The crucial question is, how effective is a constitution, or what makes it effective? What ensures that it has a real impact on the lives of people? Making a constitution effective depends on many factors. So let us see what are those factors that makes a constitution effective. So the first authority of the constitution is mode of promulgation. What does it mean? This refers to how a constitution comes into being, who crafted the constitution, and how much authority did they have. In many countries, constitutions remain defunct because they are crafted by military leaders or leaders who are not popular and do not have the ability to carry the people with them. The most successful constitutions like India, South Africa and United States are the constitutions which were drafted after the popular national movement. Although India's constitution was formally created by a constituent assembly between December 1946 and November 1949. So it almost took 42 years, 11 months and 18 days to craft the constitution, and the task of crafting the constitution was given to drafting committee, and the chairman of the drafting committee was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So it drew upon a long history of the nationalist movement that led a remarkable ability to take along different sections of Indian society together. So it really took a lot of efforts and time as well, because we know it took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days to craft it. And with that they have to take all the differences, different sections of the society living at that time, and creating of a constitution just after division of the country. It was really difficult task, that so that they can put the views and demands and needs of the every section of the society at that time. So the authority of a constitution, it comes from the people who crafted it. Let's see more. The most constitution drew enormous legitimacy from the fact that it was drawn up by the people who enjoyed immense public credibility, who had the capacity to negotiate and command the respect of a wide cross section of society, and who were able to convince the people that the constitution was not an instrument for putting their personal power or personal views, but it was the final document reflected the broad national consensus at the time. Many countries have subjected their constitution to a full-fledged referendum. The meaning of referendum is the principle or practice of referring measures proposed or passed by the legislative body, head of the state, etc., to the vote of electorate for approval or rejection. So many countries have subjected their constitution to a full-fledged reflection where all the people vote on the desirability of the constitution. Let's see whether Indian constitution was ever a subject of referendum or not. The Indian constitution was never subject to such a referendum, but nevertheless carried numerous public authority, and because it had the consent and backing of leaders who were themselves popular. Although the constitution itself was not subjected to a referendum, the people adopted it as their own by abiding by its provisions. Therefore, authority of people who enact the constitution helps determine in part its prospects for success. So Indian constitution was never a subject of referendum. Why? Because the people who crafted the constitution were so popular, and they have the credibility of the people at that time. People trusted them that these leaders, the freedom fighter, the national leaders, must have crafted the constitution in such a way that it have given the respect to all differences of that time, and till now it is so relevant. So people adopted it with full support because the leaders who crafted the constitution had the trust and the credibility of the people. Now the second is substantive provisions of a constitution. It simply talks about that does the Indian constitution, broadly speaking, give everyone a reason to go along with its broad outlines. Why the people should go along with the provisions of the constitution. This is what we have to understand in substantive provisions. So it is the hallmark of a successful constitution that it gives everyone in society some reason to go along with its provisions. A constitution that, for example, allowed permanent majorities to oppress minority groups within society would give minorities no reason to go along with the provisions of the constitution. Or, next example, a constitution that systematically privileged some members at the expense of others, or that could cease to command. So, if any group feels their identity being stifled, they will have no reason to abide by the constitution. No constitution by itself achieves perfect justice, but it has to convince the people that it provides the framework for pursuing basic justice. So you need to think that what are the different provisions constitution gives to its people, that all the people should go along with its provisions. What are the different effective provision it giving to the people for making their life more easy, or to have assurance, to have trust that if they are abiding the rules, if they are following the rules, they are safe, they are protected, basically their rights are protected. So the substantive provision should give reason to everyone in a society to go along with the constitution. Now students, think and ask question from yourself that what would be the content of some basic rules in society such that they give everyone a reason to go along with. So what you can think of, what should be the basic rules that give you some reason to along with the constitution. So here you need to understand, the more a constitution preserves the freedom and equality of all its members, the more likely it is to succeed. It means the more you give assurance to the people about freedom, equality, the constitution will have more chance to success, or people will have trust on the constitution for following it to go along with the provisions and live peacefully together in a society. We have one example to understand that making of a constitution is not always an easy and smooth affair. That if the people, or if the leaders who crafted the constitution do not have the trust, or leaders do not have the credibility of the people, or if the provisions were not giving reason to the people to follow it, this may create problem in a society. And we have example of Nepal. Nepal is an example of the complicated nature of constitution making since 1948. Nepal has had 7 constitutions in 1948, 51, 59, 62, 1990, 2007 and 2015. But all these constitutions were granted by the King of Nepal. The 1919 constitution introduced a multi-party competition, though the king continued to hold powers in many respects. For the last 10 years, Nepal was faced with military political agitations for reconstructing the government of the country. The main issue was the role of the monarch in the constitution of Nepal. Some groups in Nepal wanted to abolish the institution of monarch and establish a republican form of government in Nepal. But others believed that it may be useful to shift to the limited monarchy with a reduced role for the king. The king himself was not ready to give up powers. He took all the powers in October 2002. So you can see that the fight of monarch and for establishing republican government. Obviously, the one who has acquired the power will never want to give up. So king never wanted to give up his power, and he don't want that monarchical system should have limit, and he never wanted to establish the republican form of government. Let's see what people did. Again, following the 2007 democracy movement in Nepal, interim constitution was promulgated in 2007. The interim constitution provided for the Constituent Assembly, which was charged with writing Nepal's temporary constitution. Under the terms of the interim constitution, the new constitution was to be promulgated by 28 April 2010. But the Constituent Assembly postponed the promulgation by a year because of disagreements. On May 28, 2012, the Constituent Assembly was dissolved after it failed to finish the constitution after the latest extension. New elections were held on November 19, 2013 to the second Nepalese Constituent Assembly, and political leaders pledged to draft a new constitution within a year. The Constitution of Nepal 2015 is the present governing constitution of Nepal, which came into effect in September 2015. This government has stripped the king of almost all the powers, and now all the parties are trying to decide the manner in which country should govern. So you can understand that drafting of a constitution is not an easy task. If leaders will not take up the people with them, if they will not understand the problems of the people, and if the provisions that given in the constitution will give you no reason, or if you have no trust that it is beneficial for you, it gives you full rights, full freedom, equality, justice, you will not follow it. So constitution with a good credibility of leaders and with substantive provisions make a peaceful society, makes a society where people go along with the constitution. So students, after studying this, here are some assignment questions for you. That what is a constitution? How constitution is effective, or what are the factors on which authority of a constitution depends, and why Indian constitution was never subjected to a referendum. So with this, let us recapitulate what we have discussed in today's class. So we have discussed the authority of a constitution, under which we dealt mode of promulgation, through which we came to know that how a constitution comes into being, and we have asked several questions like who crafted the constitution and how much the authority did they have, or why the leaders need to carry the people with them, why it is important that the leaders should have the credibility of the people, and how it helped them to craft the constitution. Next, we have seen the substantive provisions of a constitution. So the substantive provision of a constitution gives everyone in society some reason to go along with its provisions. There are certain factors that we will deal in next class. So thank you for today. Have a nice day.